Lawrence Castillo gazed at the glossy photograph hanging on his office wall, Castillo's Kitchen, the restaurant he had built from the ground up. A sleek logo gleamed at the center, framed by images of smiling patrons and elegantly plated dishes. Anyone would think his life was perfect. From the outside, Lawrence was a successful restaurateur known for his culinary finesse and business acumen. The critics adored him, and his bank account was healthy. Yet, a subtle discomfort gnawed at him. For weeks, a question tugged at the back of his mind: was Castillo's Kitchen still the place he had dreamed of, or had it become something else entirely? The endless cycle of staff meetings, menu revisions, and marketing strategies had left him feeling oddly disconnected. Despite glowing reviews and full reservations most nights, Lawrence couldn't shake the sense that he was missing the emotional heartbeat of his own establishment. In quieter moments, he remembered when his passion for cooking was pure and untainted by business politics. He recalled days when each dish felt like an artistic statement, and every customer's delight was a personal triumph. But now, he felt more like a manager than a creator. It was time for a shift, for a deeper look behind the scenes. So he formulated a plan to immerse himself once again in the everyday pulse of his restaurant, in disguise. One chilly Tuesday evening, a steady rain drummed against the pavement outside Castillo's Kitchen. The neon sign glowed faintly through the downpour, its reflection shimmering in the wet streets. Slipping into a worn hoodie, faded jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low over his brow, Lawrence approached the restaurant incognito. He stepped inside, instantly enveloped by the hum of lively chatter, the soft tinkling of silverware, and the fragrant swirl of garlic, fresh herbs, and simmering sauces. Servers navigated the tables with professional grace, balancing plates of handmade pasta and decadent desserts. Overhead lights cast a warm golden glow, illuminating couples lost in intimate conversations and families sharing plates of tiramisu. Lawrence chose a booth near the back, the leather seat slightly cracked from years of service. From there, he could see nearly the entire dining room, the swirl of personalities and emotions he had long missed by confining himself to the office upstairs. A neatly dressed waitress approached with a smile. "Good evening," she said, her voice bright. "May I start you off with something to drink?" He cleared his throat, lowering his voice to avoid recognition. "Just water, thanks. Anne. I'll need a moment to decide on the food." Her polite nod was tinged with the busy energy of someone juggling many tasks. "Of course. I'll be right back with your water." Lawrence exhaled, allowing his senses to immerse in the environment he had once been so intimately connected to. Somewhere behind the swinging kitchen doors, pots and pans clanged and hissed. Aromas of roasting vegetables and caramelizing onions beckoned him back to the cooking line, a place he once loved. He reminded himself that tonight, he was here to observe. Not as the boss, but as an unassuming patron. A flicker of movement from the next booth overcaught his attention. Two boys, perhaps in their early teens, leaned close, whispering with an urgency that piqued his interest. Their voices rose and fell as though they shared a secret mission. Lawrence strained to catch their words, each syllable heightened by the sense that he was intruding on something private. "Do you think he'll even show up?" asked the smaller of the two. His voice trembled slightly, filled with nervous anticipation. "I don't know," replied the other, who seemed older. His tone carried a sharper edge. "But Mom said he's always here. We just have to wait." Who could they be looking for? Lawrence wondered. A local celebrity? A family member? There was a distinct unease in their whispers, a sense of urgency that went beyond mere curiosity. His waitress returned then, placing a glass of water on the table. "Have you decided on your order?" she asked kindly. Caught off guard, Lawrence blinked. "Sorry. The house special, please." "Excellent choice," she said, scribbling on her notepad before hurrying away. Once she was gone, he refocused on the soft conversation drifting from behind him. "It's his fault everything went wrong," the older boy murmured bitterly. Mom told us he ruined everything. The younger boy's voice quivered. Are you sure it's him? What if we... Trust me, the older boy interrupted. Mom wouldn't lie about that. Lawrence's chest tightened at the raw frustration he heard. Could they be talking about someone in the restaurant? Or, a more unsettling thought, could they be talking about him? He leaned slightly to the side, hoping to catch more details without appearing obvious. Just then, the older boy's voice cut through the ambient clink of silverware. He has to show up eventually. He's the reason Mom lost everything. Lawrence felt an inexplicable prickle across his skin. The bitterness in their voices weighed on him like a storm cloud. An unsteady realization bloomed. What if he was the reason for their mother's struggles? But how could that be? Yes, over the years, he had made tough decisions, terminating certain staff, rebranding to keep the menu profitable, but he couldn't recall any scenario that would lead to a family's ruin. At least, not intentionally. His thoughts spiraled until he realized he was no longer content simply to listen. Steeling himself, Lawrence stood and walked toward the boys' booth. Both of them stiffened when he drew near. Up close, he noticed they looked younger than he first assumed. The older boy might have been 14, and the younger 12. Hey there, he began softly, forcing a friendly tone. You. Both seem upset. Everything all right? The older boy's eyes flashed with alarm, instantly turning guarded. We're fine, he said curtly. Just mind your own business. Lawrence raised both palms, showing he meant no harm. I'm sorry if I'm intruding. I thought maybe I could help. You mentioned you were waiting for someone. The younger boy fidgeted, avoiding eye contact. But the older one examined Lawrence's face as if comparing it to an image in his memory. Slowly, a spark of recognition flickered. Wait a minute, he hissed, his voice rising. You're Lawrence Castillo, aren't you? A sudden jolt ricocheted through Lawrence's gut. He was trying to remain anonymous, but the situation was slipping from his control. Clearing his throat, he offered a wary nod. Yes, I'm Lawrence Castillo. The younger boy gasped, looking fearful. So it's really him. Lawrence felt as though the walls were closing in. I'm sorry, but, do we know each other? Instead of answering, the older boy clenched his fists on the table. You're the reason Mom lost everything, he hissed, raw anger crackling in his voice. Disoriented, Lawrence asked, Your mom? I don't understand. The older boy's cheeks burned red as he practically spat the words. Alicia Ramirez. She used to work here. She helped you build this restaurant, and you stole her recipes. You never gave her credit. Then you blacklisted her so nobody else would hire her. Lawrence's pulse thundered. Alicia Ramirez. The name collided with memories of a chef who had once been part of his team, passionate and driven. Yet those memories felt hazy with the rush of years and a labyrinth of business dealings. His mouth went dry. Alicia. She was a sous chef here, right? But I never. She told us everything, the older boy snapped, cutting him off. How you took her ideas and passed them off as your own. How you made sure the industry wouldn't touch her after she left. She lost her career because of you. And we, his voice faltered. We lost everything. A wave of guilt and confusion washed over Lawrence. Had he unknowingly allowed someone on his team, perhaps an overzealous manager or publicist, to sideline Alicia's contributions? Or had he himself been so blinded by ambition that he overlooked her efforts? Reeling from the accusation, he said in a hoarse whisper, I need to speak with your mother. Please. I need to understand what happened. The boys exchanged uncertain glances. Finally, the older one said, if you really want to make it right, follow us after dinner. We'll take you to see her. The rest of Lawrence's meal passed in a blur. He poked at his plate, hardly tasting the house special that had once been his pride and joy. All he could think about were the urgent, angry words of the two boys behind him, and the memory of Alicia's brilliant cooking. She had specialized in sauces, layering flavors in a way that elevated even simple dishes to gastronomic art. Even as he paid the bill, he wondered if the staff recognized him but chose to remain silent. By the time he stepped out of Castillo's kitchen into the rain-swept sidewalk, the two boys were waiting for him under a flickering street lamp. "You have a car?" the older boy demanded, arms crossed. Lawrence nodded, pointing to a nearby sedan. "Yes. Where do we need to go?" The younger boy hesitated, glancing at his brother. "We'll show you," he said quietly. In the car, the boys gave curt directions. Street after street blurred under the glow of passing headlights, until they reached a modest apartment complex. Cracked pavement and chipped paint signaled a struggle for upkeep. The entire neighborhood exuded a quiet sadness, in stark contrast to the bustling city center where Castillo's kitchen thrived. They led him up a flight of squeaking stairs to a second-floor unit. The older boy knocked softly. There was a scraping sound as someone undid multiple locks. The door opened to reveal a tired-looking woman in her late 30s. Her dark hair was streaked with a few strands of silver, and her posture spoke of someone who had learned to endure disappointment. "Alicia," Lawrence whispered, recognizing her face in the dim hallway light. Alicia Ramirez's eyes hardened the moment she saw him. "Lawrence Castillo," she said, each syllable like a blow. "I never thought I'd see you again." His heart pounded painfully against his ribcage. "I'm sorry to barge in like this." "Your sons," he trailed off, uncertain how much they had told her. She stepped aside, letting them enter. The apartment was cramped but clean. A cluster of family photos lined one wall, Alicia's warm smile illuminating them, albeit from another time. A battered couch, a small coffee table covered in books, and worn-out chairs completed the sparse furnishings. Lawrence noticed a faint aroma of something floral and comforting, possibly from scented candles on a side table. The younger boy cleared his throat. "Mom," he wanted to talk. "We didn't know if we should." Alicia nodded for her sons to leave the room. She folded her arms, meeting Lawrence's gaze with a mix of hurt and fury. "So, you found me," she said flatly. "What do you want?" He searched her face for any hint of warmth but found only weary defiance. "I talked to your sons, and they told me, well, they told me I took everything from you." "Alicia, if I did something." "If?" She arched an eyebrow, her voice rising with pent-up anger. "No, you did, Lawrence. You took credit for my sauces and my signature creations. I was young and naive. I adored cooking, and I shared all my ideas openly. You promised me the world, said we'd build Castillo's kitchen together. But then you started doing interviews alone. The articles in culinary magazines mentioned only you, never me. I tried to confront you about it, remember?" He felt a wave of shame. He did recall a conversation that had taken place in the early days, but it had been overshadowed by a flurry of media appearances and expansion plans. Had he brushed her aside in the chaos? I only remember bits and pieces," he confessed, voice trembling. "But blacklisting you? That can't be true." Alicia's eyes glistened with tears she refused to shed. "I don't know if you personally orchestrated it, but word got around that I was difficult, that I made false claims about my boss. Suddenly, no one would hire me. I tried smaller restaurants, catering companies, all doors were shut. Eventually, I had to take odd jobs to feed my kids. I left the culinary world behind." Silence pressed in on them, broken only by the distant hum of the apartment's aging refrigerator. "Alicia," Lawrence said, voice ragged with remorse, "I swear, I never meant for any of that to happen. If there's anything I can do to make it right, I'll do it." She studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "Make it right?" she echoed. "You have no idea how these last few years have been. I lost my sense of purpose. My kids grew up watching me struggle, all because I dared to dream of being recognized for my talent. Lawrence swallowed hard. I can't change the past. But, maybe I can offer you a place back at Castillo's kitchen. Not just as an employee, but as a head chef, someone who has full creative control. You'd get top billing, complete acknowledgement. Her laughter was hollow. You think a job offer will erase everything? That I'll trust you just like that? He held her gaze, refusing to look away. I don't expect instant forgiveness. But I'm asking for a chance to prove that I'm serious about rectifying this. I owe you that much. For several heartbeats, neither of them spoke. Then Alicia sighed, shoulders sagging under the weight of her memories. I'll think about it, she conceded, her voice trembling with emotion she fought to contain. Lawrence nodded, relief mingling with guilt. Take your time. My door is always open. Their conversation ended with the tension still palpable, but a fragile thread of possibility hung in the air. He left the small apartment feeling as though he had stepped into a different reality, one where his success had a hidden cost he'd never accounted for. Watching the door close behind him, he knew this was only the beginning of a journey toward redemption. A week after their charged encounter, Alicia Ramirez walked through the doors of Castillo's kitchen. Gone was the timid sous chef from years ago. In her place stood a woman tempered by hardship, her gaze tinged with both determination and caution. Staff who recognized Alicia offered polite greetings, though they looked to Lawrence for cues. He introduced her formally at a morning staff meeting, announcing that she would be stepping in as a co-head chef. Murmurs rippled through the team, surprise, curiosity, and perhaps a hint of wariness from those who only knew her story by rumor. Lawrence sensed the tension, so he addressed it head-on. Alicia has some of the most extraordinary culinary instincts I've ever encountered. We're fortunate to have her here. I expect everyone to give her the same respect you'd give me. Alicia nodded, her arms crossed. She spoke softly but firmly. I know many of you have questions. I'm here to cook, to collaborate, and to share my vision. I hope you'll judge me by my work and not the gossip. That day, Alicia retreated to the kitchen's bustling core, the sauté station. She reacquainted herself with the feel of a professional cooktop, the aroma of simmering stock, and the staccato ring of metal utensils. There was a kind of homecoming in the clang and sizzle, a return to the craft that once defined her. Meanwhile, Lawrence opted to hover at the edges. He noticed Alicia's sons, Luis and Tom, peering through the pass window, watching their mother with pride. They visited after school, claiming a corner of the restaurant where they could do homework and occasionally sample new dishes. The entire arrangement was unconventional, but he welcomed it as part of rebuilding trust. In the following weeks, Alicia and Lawrence began crafting a new menu together. They stayed after hours, tasting experimental sauces, fine-tuning plating techniques, and brainstorming recipes that seamlessly blended their perspectives. Their brainstorming sessions were peppered with conflict. Years of resentful memories didn't vanish overnight, but beneath the tension lay mutual respect for each other's culinary gifts. Once, during a late-night session, Alicia showed him a sauce that married smoky chipotle peppers with the brightness of fresh citrus. The flavor profile was astounding. Lawrence's eyes widened in admiration. How did you layer the heat and acidity so perfectly? He asked, taking another spoonful. She gave a small shrug, though her eyes sparkled. By learning how to balance bitterness with sweetness and spice. Kind of like life, you know. He nodded, acknowledging her metaphor. It's brilliant. An unspoken truce began to form, as they realized cooking was their common language. Every sauce tasted, every plate perfected, chipped away at the walls of bitterness, slowly, but surely. Word spread that Castillo's kitchen was unveiling a bold new menu. Food critics started contacting Lawrence for press releases, intrigued by rumors of a secret collaborator. Instead of his usual solo approach, he publicly credited Alicia as co-creator of each dish. He insisted that she take equal spotlight during interviews. Some journalists were taken aback, having always associated the restaurant solely with Lawrence. But he stood firm, highlighting Alicia's contributions and clarifying her role as co-head chef. Customers noticed the restaurant's renewed energy. There was a heightened sense of collaboration, of synergy, emanating from the staff. Servers eagerly described the new dishes, praising the vibrant sauces and creative pairings. One weekend evening, a line formed outside well before opening, as people buzzed about the fresh direction. Seeing the dining room packed, Lawrence felt a surge of gratitude that went beyond profit. This was about restoring something that should have existed all along, a partnership based on shared passion and fair recognition. Luis and Tom became regular fixtures, their eyes lighting up each time Alicia emerged from the kitchen to check on a table. They watched her flourish, no longer overshadowed. The older boy, once so guarded, quietly thanked Lawrence one evening. "For what?" Lawrence asked, leaning against a bar stool. "For giving Mom her life back," he said, gaze lowered, as though embarrassed to admit any admiration. Lawrence's throat felt tight. He reached out and gently patted the boy's shoulder. "Thank you for trusting me. I know it wasn't easy." Yet the journey wasn't free of setbacks. One afternoon, Alicia overheard a supplier praising Lawrence for his innovative sauce. Anger flared, reminding her of old wounds. She confronted Lawrence, accusations slipping off her tongue before she could stop them. Lawrence listened, hands raised in surrender. "I get it," he said softly. "I'll make sure he knows it's your sauce. Old habits die hard, but I'm on your side now." The tension broke, replaced by a sense of relief. Alicia noticed that each confrontation ended with Lawrence taking concrete steps to ensure her name was on every menu item, every press mention. Each time, the scars of the past mended a little more. Weeks turned into months. With Alicia's unique culinary perspective woven into every dish, Castillo's kitchen soared to new heights. Food bloggers raved about the explosive yet balanced flavors, describing them as authentic, heartfelt, and daring. Customer reviews highlighted the restaurant's return to its roots, a place where creativity thrived and pride took a backseat to communal success. On a brisk evening, the restaurant celebrated the launch of its revamped menu. The staff wore matching aprons emblazoned with both Lawrence's and Alicia's initials. Candles flickered on every table, reflecting an atmosphere of warmth and unity. At the end of service, Alicia and Lawrence stepped into the dining room to applause from grateful patrons. A local news crew covering the event cornered them with questions. One reporter turned to Alicia. "How does it feel to be co-leading a restaurant that's become the talk of the town?" Alicia glanced at Lawrence, her eyes shining with a mix of humility and triumph. "It feels like a long overdue second chance," she said. "I'm grateful to be recognized, finally, for the skills I've dedicated my life to honing." Lawrence, standing beside her, added, "None of this would be possible without Alicia. If there's one lesson I've learned, it's that success is never a solo endeavor." The applause that followed felt like the exhale of months of tension and renewal. When the last of the patrons trickled out and the staff wrapped up closing duties, Alicia's sons ran to hug her. She knelt down, tears of joy welling up as she realized they were proud of her again, and she was proud of herself, too. Lawrence watched from a few steps away, heart swelling with something beyond mere satisfaction. He recognized this was about more than just good business. It was about doing what was right, even if that meant facing past mistakes head-on. That night, Alicia and Lawrence lingered in the empty dining room. Dimmed lights danced across freshly wiped tables. Alicia spoke first. "You know, we can't erase what happened. But I believe we can keep moving forward." He nodded. "That's all I want, to honor your contributions and ensure this place reflects both of our visions." She placed a hand on the edge of a table, almost reverently. "I think we're on our way. This story, a journey from confrontation to collaboration, serves as a profound reminder that accountability and empathy can reshape even the most broken relationships. Lawrence's initial success, built on a partially stolen foundation, revealed cracks that only honesty and humility could repair. Alicia's return not only salvaged her personal dream but lifted the restaurant to a new zenith of culinary excellence. Each character is vulnerable in their own way, Lawrence grappling with regret, Alicia wrestling with bitterness, and the boys trying to protect their mother's legacy. This vulnerability forges a human connection that resonates with us all, underscoring that everyone, at some point, craves recognition, validation, and a second chance. Ask yourself, who in your life might need a second chance or overdue acknowledgement? Is there a colleague, friend, or family member whose work and contributions have gone underappreciated? Reflect on the times you might have overlooked someone's efforts. Reach out and mend bridges, offering genuine acknowledgement or assistance. Share this story if it resonated with you, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Conversations around accountability and redemption can spark transformative change. In the end, the lesson is clear: genuine success is never isolated. It flourishes in an environment where everyone's contributions are valued, where we raise others as we climb. Just as Alicia and Lawrence found renewal, each of us can cultivate deeper fulfillment by embracing humility, righting past wrongs, and forging a path forward that honors every voice. Remember, real triumph lies not in the perfection of our journey, but in our willingness to learn, to rectify mistakes, and to offer hope to those we once wronged.